y'all. Today is Wednesday, April 6th. And tonight, you'll see Gregory running around. I didn't give him his gummies, so he is wide awake. And tonight, we're going to discuss the case of Mr. Paul Brown Jr. So, with Mr. Paul Brown Jr., he was senselessly, brutally murdered in Cincinnati, Ohio. So, in saying that, right now, for the next 14 minutes, I'm going to play a video so that you can see Mr. Brown's story. One minute, and here we go.
On May 29th, Memorial Day, they tried to erase my father, Paul Brown Jr., VA veteran, Purple Heart, without honor by the Cincinnati, Ohio Police Department, the Spring Grove Funeral Home, and his landlord. And the reason why I say this, on May the 29th, my aunt, Viola Brown, she called the police department to check on my father, to do a well check on him. So now when we check on our father, we'll call the police department. They'll call us back to let us know how he's doing. But this particular day was one of the worst days of my life. When the police called my aunt back, he stated that they found my father's body in the house dead, and they had already taken his body to the funeral home, a funeral home for a cremation without our consent. I was devastated.
They assumed nobody wasn't coming because the investigator would never said I was told there wasn't going to be a funeral. What would make an investigator say that? Well, he had not talked to the family. Might be different if he knew nothing about a family. But when the family on the incident report, they starting the incident report, they making it, well, you already know we exist. So why would you send the body where they cremate him at? Why would you take him out the jurisdiction? You got no reason to do that.
I quickly notified the director over the funeral home. He told me that he couldn't understand that the police would tell him that it was no next of kin. But looking at the police report, it had my Aunt Viola name on it. I told him me and my family was coming up to Cincinnati, Ohio to see my father, to view his body. On the way coming up on that Wednesday to Cincinnati, Ohio, I got a call from the director from the funeral home telling us that we couldn't see our father. And I couldn't understand that. We was hurt. He said that a lady called in stating that she was the wife and we couldn't see him. I told him that my father wasn't married and we wanted to see our father. So he told us that we had to wait until Friday. So we still drove up to Cincinnati, Ohio, 12 hours, sleeping in our car, trying to get a room just to be close to our father. It's so many different funeral homes in Cincinnati, Spring Grove Funeral Home. They have so many locations. But when I called to speak with the director, the only thing I had was the phone number. And I told him I was coming up. When he called me that night and he said, "I'm sorry, you cannot see your father." We didn't even know where his body was. Thursday morning, the director called us back and I told him that we was going to the police department. He said he would meet us over there.
My sister talks to the detective. He called the officer that had been in the apartment. The officer called the landlord. The landlord tell us he never lived in the apartment. He ain't on the lease. We can't come to the apartment. So now the light bulb goes off. Why am I being barred from my own father's apartment?
So on Friday evening, I got the call from the director telling me he apologized, that a lady called in and she was lying about she was married to him. So he finally texted us the address.
Get in the funeral home. We're looking at the body. My sister said, he been beaten. Left side of his face swole. His nose, there's a little bridge in his nose. Say, okay, we go through that. Me, my uncle, my sisters, my brothers. I videoed it when we was in the funeral home. I videoed the body because I don't want no mistakes of saying it didn't happen. Paul Brown Jr. Every day.
I asked the director from the funeral home, why is my father dressed in a hospital gown? He looked at me and stated that 2 members from his funeral home went and got my father's body, put him in the back of the van, and they washed him up to look presentable. And they put him in a hospital gown. And I'm like, why would they dress him in a hospital gown? He haven't been seen at the hospital, so why would they put him in a hospital gown to make him look hospice? And I found out later that if you dressed in a hospital gown and you hospice, no autopsy is required. I asked the director of the funeral home, I want an autopsy done for my father. And he said no, because it's medical. And I said, this is not medical. How could this be medical when my father is beaten in the face? He said that the police in the corner said that an autopsy wouldn't be done because he died of a medical reason. And I said, what's the medical reason? He said he didn't know.
They got 2 scenes on the incident report. They found them 2 different ways. You can't find a body but one way when you come on a scene. When you come on that scene, you're supposed to take a picture of how you find that body when you come in that apartment. You being an officer or a sergeant or whoever you are, you know when you first come on that crime scene, when you got to take notes so you will know. You cannot tamper with the evidence. You said you came in the door. You had to force the door in because you couldn't hear him. Now, if you forced the door in, how could the guitar and the piece of the door that you broke off be under his feet if he already did? If he already did, he can't even move. So your incident report don't even match up with what you saying. Now, according to their law, they say if anything is suspicious, an autopsy is automatic.
I'm retired from law enforcement. My brother, he's retired from law enforcement. My sister is in law enforcement. I went to the coroner's department and I spoke with investigator Weber. And I said, how could you release my father's body and move him to the funeral home for cremation without our consent? And he looked at me and my family and he said, I washed my hands of it. I was told it wasn't going to be a funeral. And he gave me the disc. And to my surprise, me and my family looking at the disc, it showed my father's body beaten on the floor with his fist balled up, his pants down, and his penis cut. So how could this be medical? And gonna tell us he don't live there. And later I find the pictures of them standing over my father's body with his license showing he lived there over 10 years. That wasn't the first call they received to check on my father.
Right now, the situation they put us in, we spent everything we had. We didn't have much when we came. Then they caused us to stay on the streets for a whole week. They barred us from the apartment. Then they took everything out of his apartment. And now we ain't assuming this. When we took the pictures from the corner, they got the pictures of the stuff in the apartment. When me and my sister go in the apartment, the stuff gone. The guitar that's in the scene ain't in the scene no more. The amplifier ain't in the scene no more. So all we want is justice. All we want is what the average individual would want. Especially on Memorial Day when you disgrace a soldier that done gave his time. The Agent Orange and all that he done been involved in, he did that for his country. When he got back, he was doing things out of the ordinary. Why? Because he done been traumatized in the wartime. Now all of a sudden he crazy because he too old to defend himself. You talking about his asthma pump, he had that for years. That ain't nothing new. He was a fisherman, he was a singer, he was a cook, he was a drawer, he was an artist.
At this present time, my father's body is still at the morgue, at the funeral home, because they refused to give us an autopsy. I spoke with the director on last week, and I asked him about the clothes that my father had died in. He said they threw the clothes away. So not only do they do not want to do the autopsy, all the evidence that we have they erased it along with my father. How could a man be found dead in the apartment with his fist balled up and his face beaten, and you close the investigation the same day, and an officer sign off on his own investigation? I contact the general. I contact the mayor of Cincinnati. When I spoke with them briefly, the secretary from the mayor's office called me back, and she stated that she spoke with the coroner's office, and they say they don't have anything to do with it because Corrine Police Department has taken my father's body. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're taking his body. His body's supposed to be to the funeral home. So then she told me she cannot have anything to do with it because she's in Cincinnati and Corrine Township is over it. And I'm like, how could that be when my father's body was in Cincinnati? So I'm confused. How could they take his body out of the district? The police changed my father's address from Cincinnati to Corrine Township. To know his body is still at Spring Grove Funeral Home, and he's not down here to Baltimore, South Carolina with me and my family. We can't bury him. And whoever took his life, and they're getting away with it, and they're using the system to cover up their murder. How could people, the police department, all these people in high places, use the system to do their dirt?
Something ain't right about the situation. I don't know what it is. I'm not guessing. I'm saying let's do the autopsy and give my father the honor that he deserved.
So if you didn't do nothing wrong, why you won't do an autopsy? And if it's medical, why you won't sign a death certificate? How is the situation no autopsy, no death certificate? A coroner won't sign it. A doctor won't sign off on it. I've never heard of nothing like this.
Something that should have been easy to go through so we can grieve and get on over it, you made it impossible.
So I'm reaching out, me and my family, to the world. Anybody that could stand with me and my family for justice. We don't have an attorney at this time. Even when we contact the attorneys in Cincinnati, Ohio, they refuse to take it.
To have an unjust go like this here would be a tragedy. Whomever this touch or feel that it could have happened to your family, you know, it take a village to handle things. And if you can help us, we cry that somebody stand for justice. Because if you don't stand for justice, you'll fall for anything. That's it.
Ooh. So, tonight's show.
Deseo hablar de un tema que impactó mi vida.
Tonight's show, we will be discussing the lack of justice in this case. Right now, I'm going to bring back on Mr. Anton Parks. I'm not sure if y'all remember him from the other week, but here he is. He's streaming with audio only. We also have Mr. Charles Brown. He's not well, I don't think that he's related to the Browns family. He's on audio as well on my phone. And we may have one more person joining us. So, gentlemen, can you tell, what else can you share about this story that we may not see? Like, what else is going on regarding the lack of justice in this case? Anton, Charles? Hold on. We can't hear you, Charles. Let me put you on Turn you back up. Okay. What'd you say, sir?
You can hear me now?
Yes. Can y'all hear Charles?
I'm sorry, I can hear you. I'm getting my device straightened out. I'm sorry, but yes, I can definitely hear you.
Okay. We can hear you, Charles. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to come on platform with Miss Brown and her family as well. So thank you as well, Miss Chantaye.
You're welcome.
I'll print your hand with it.
Okay, Anton, would you like to share for a moment about a little more about this case and what's going on with the Brown family?
Okay, I'm sorry. Repeat your question.
Can you share a little more about the Brown family and what's going on with this case? Like, we just watched a very heart-wrenching video of 13 minutes worth of them sharing what's going on.
Only speak to my opinion and then some of the facts, on some of the facts. Some of the things we would not be clear on unless we discover film or audio. But some clear facts are they received a call. They went to see what happened to Mr. Brown. And from the first moment of investigating, you could see things were wrong. When they saw the body for themselves before they got the picture or any information, you could tell there was mistreatment to Mr. Brown either before he died or postpartum. And then the processes that were being taken were way out of whack and unnormal, not protocol for the police department or the coroner's office or the funeral home. And then with further investigation, they uncovered a lot of things, which you saw in the video. I didn't understand why there is picture of Mr. Brown in his home with his pants halfway down, genitalia cut, on top of a guitar in the door. It's just a lot of things that are unclear, that even if they're not clear, that clearly states that there was abuse to Mr. Brown at some point, if not throughout, the recent days and months leading to his passing. I will call it a murder, from my opinion. We haven't proven that yet, but I will call it a murder, and the evidence itself says that it's a murder. The Brown family, they're very, very, very adamant about getting justice. I love that they are willing to speak for themselves. A lot of times they speak from emotion, but that emotion is warranted in a situation like this when you're dealing with murder, especially of a child or a parent. But the case is I think should go in the direction of exposing, bringing litigation to everybody involved that was egregiously wrong in this process. Because, like I said, they might not never get the clear understanding of what actually happened, but they are very clear that laws have been broken, a crime such as murder has been committed, misuse of a corpse, misuse of government and judicial powers, and we can keep going. So I don't speak about what their legal process is or what they're doing. That's not good to speak on anyway, but I don't know fully the dynamics of that. That's a different department in the organization process that we're making to help them. So some other brothers like Charlie or Andy could speak to the judicial leg, but as far as the social justice edge and the political edge, I feel like Cincinnati and surrounding cities are using policy and the brother-sister code within a city structure. So I always say to people, after the constitutional pledge that they make a pledge to protect that city or that county or that town with their lives and their honor. So everything else, they can go to church, they can be honorable with money, with family and people, but when it comes to that city, they're willing to lie, steal, kill, and die to keep the secrets and keep the machine running. So we have to understand that, and the Brown family needs all of us to get justice. It might come socially, it might come with civil action. I don't know how, but if we strive, we can seek judicial and legal action. But again, when you give law enforcement, they're the ones committing the crime, and they have time to police themselves and clean up and construct the narrative and the reports. It's kind of hard unless the feds come in and sort it out. And even when they come, they're human. They have better ways to detect stuff. But again, when you're dealing with a police force who knows how to investigate, know what they're going to come looking for, and they have the upper hand from day one, you might not get the judicial satisfaction that you're looking for. But we can, again, get justice for Mr. Brown on many angles. We can get justice for his family. We can get them trauma recovery resources. We can get them financial help because the city is trying to charge them an astronomical fee for playing games with them and covering up the murder of their loved one. So I hate it to be long-winded, but this is a very touchy subject, and there's a lot of information with only so much time on each platform or space to share it. But it's again, next week you guys will get, what you really need from the story. You'll get to hear Mr. and Mrs. Brown tell it, from the source, and understand, more who Mr. Brown was, because he was a great man. He was a soldier. He was a black man that, if you look at his life, a musician, a cook, a father, a soldier, and just a man, period. An honorable person in his community, despite what happened to him in the end. So all of us should feel some type of way and some type of, need. We have a father, mother, even if they wasn't the best one, to understand that he did his best, want to see justice for this guy. So I'm here till the end. And I'm a very busy person. I'm not asking for any money. I'm just asking for justice, just like his family is. So I'm looking forward to anybody who has any resources to help them, sometimes it's just listening to the story and then connecting the dot. Chantaye is very good at that in our circle. But to anybody listening, do a little research, come back next week and listen, to what they have to say themselves. And I'll pass it to Charlie because, like I said, the legality in it is important as well. That's not my field, but I love to listen to when the brothers get to telling us what we can do legally, and then that can conjoin with what we do politically as far as trying to change policy and go to the legislators when there is egregious mishandling of local government.
Thank you so much, Mr. Parks, Senior. Charlie boy, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
let me see. Let me put him right here. All right. Can you share the legalities? And y'all, you may hear Gregory in the background. He woke up before the melatonin hit. So, Charlie boy.
Yes, ma'am. As far as the legal standpoint of the bias, the prejudice, the racial motivation behind it, the discriminatory and the predatory from those actors into this case, it stems from a long range of fraud, if you would allow me to say that word, fraud, from that government, from the police department all the way down from the judges. And the family is definitely seeking justice in this behalf. And like the brother said at first, that this is a touchy situation, and this is a case that was cold and was swept up under the rug. And again, there's so many major players inside of this space, man, but it just builds on fraud. And even from the coroner all the way down to the police department, even from when the body was discovered and placed in the morgue. I don't want to touch up on too many things, but I do want to say this. The action that was taken from them was intentional. And the
hold on. You were a little blurry. Hold on, Charlie. The actions that was taken from them was what? He's on the phone, brother. He can see. Wait a minute. You said the actions that when you were blurry. I mean, not blurry, but a little muffled last sentence that you said. If you don't mind repeating yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I said from the legal standpoint is that there are so many major players inside of this case that hit upon fraud, documents, being rewrote, being covered up, and things of that nature. And family are asking for everyone that is listening on this podcast for any type of legal assistance that can be done and put this case together as one. Cincinnati, Ohio, man, that state, there's so many malfeasance and pushing things down to the people in that community. So I encourage and I love Ms. Brown and their family of pushing the issue of allowing their stories to be told, to be heard, and act upon. And I come on this podcast to allow everyone to understand that we have to work together to see this through with the family.
Yes.
And I want to say again, Chantaye, thank you for allowing me to come on. But the legal aspect, there's a lot of things that I'm trying not to touch on, but together, if we come back on the second part, I think there will be a little bit more information to give out on that. But this family are indeed in need of assistance and together.
Right. So to reiterate what he just said, what the two gentlemen just said, is that the family does need as much support, mental, emotional, financial contributions, like anything that you can pour into this family. They're great people. I've had conversations with them. I guess my what's so right now is Gregory is running around. You hear him, and I'm trying not to mute myself, but I also need to be accountable and responsible for not being fully present. I've been talking to them. I've been talking to the gentleman and a couple of other people today, and I hadn't been feeling well the last 2 days. So this has been a very touchy subject, especially from someone who lost their father to the police when she was young. So in hearing this story, it triggered me, and so I'm sure it triggers them every time that they have to share it. Next week, we're going to have definitely Mrs. Brown on, as well as Mr. Brown on, the children of Paul Brown Jr. But what's there as well is justice. Like, how often does it happen where we have our servicemen and women coming back from war, coming back? Like, this man was a decorated Purple Heart, and there's no reason why he should have experienced the treatment that he experienced in his aging years. So it's like, what are we doing to take care of our people? You know, it's one thing for me to launch a show and called Unjust and talk about the lack of justice, but in the solution, what are we doing to work together, to partner together to take care of our people? And when you have situations like this family had to sleep in their cars in Cincinnati because they didn't have enough money for the hotels. There weren't enough hotels to house, like, just the whole process. Where were our people at? So we got to step up. We got to do better. When you start hearing of these situations, this family's been fighting for justice for about 5 years now. 5 years, and they haven't stopped. They haven't slowed down. I told Mrs. Brown today, you got to keep that foot on their throats and keep on pushing, you know, because it's like there is no slowing down. They've gotten this conversation started. It's real. It's alive. It's here. It's here now. You know, there were a couple of things like the HIPAA laws. I'm someone who lives with mental health, and sometimes when I stop taking my medicine, my family struggles with the missing person reports, me coming up missing, all of that. And I say that to say I refuse to give up guardianship because I couldn't imagine living my life in an institution. So I refuse to give up guardianship rights. And in this case, Mr. Brown didn't have a legal guardian. So the way that things happen, to stay vague about the case itself, but there has to be some kind of adjustment to the HIPAA laws as it pertains to guardianship, because when they first started receiving complaints about noise violations or something like that, and knowing that, understanding that there was some PTSD, there was no way to contact the family. Supposedly, I'm sure they contacted the family if they needed rent or something, but because he was experiencing what he was experiencing, they didn't contact the family inside of the HIPAA rights, because you can't violate someone's HIPAA rights to say that they're institutionalized or something like that. But we have to do better, because what happens is he's returned home to his own device. And with saying that, if he doesn't have anyone at home to care for him, what happens then? We keep having cases of this. And this isn't the first veteran. It probably won't be the last veteran unless we do something about it. If they can do things to eradicate homelessness, we can partner together as a community to bring about some social change and to make a difference in this conversation. Okay. Anton, what are you talking about? I see your tag. I don't understand.
On my name on here, spelled PARK, and there's senior period. So
I don't see that. It's PARKS senior.
You see that on my picture?
Yeah, ANTON PARKS senior.
Oh, it's not showing on my end. It must cuts it off on the picture on my. It just say Anton Park. PARK.
No. Anton Parks is listed. No, your whole name is listed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Need to get that stuff.
Yes, sir. And Charles, Anton, you can easily chime in. This is a conversation. We have Gregory running around. We have me sitting here. Everyone's getting off. He's gotten a hold of some decorations. So the world of a mom.
But yeah, I most of all, I just think like next be a powerful weekend. Usually you don't catch, a whole city like Cincinnati with their pants down. We know they do this a lot. Officers are human, so just like you have people who you wouldn't believe on the street that, oh, he just murdered him, or he just killed her, or he just did this or that. We have those same type of people in law enforcement, and I just find it real. And pardon my French, but don't pardon my French. Real fucked up that listening to the process, there's a recording from a witness, and he states that he pulls up in the coroner van. His partner was not available to come help him load the body, but the body was loaded up by him and a solo lone officer. There were no paramedics there. There was nobody there from any other agency but one officer, which tells me this officer has a relationship with either the funeral director, funeral home guy, or the coroner in the local area, and he called them and they helped him out. Because first thing law enforcement does in all 52 states, every city, the sheriff in the county, what they do is they call for backup. They call the dispatch. They don't call the funeral home and say, hey, send us a van. They call dispatch and say, hey, I found a dead body, and so can you send me backup and any other assistance that is under mandate when you call in a deceased person, murder, if they die from natural causes. You should know it right then unless you see an assailant or evidence of something happened to the body that was not natural. So again, you don't know even if they look natural, if they were poisoned or something else, a dart. So at the end of the day, there's protocol that has to be followed no matter where you live, no matter where you stay, and they didn't follow this protocol. If I myself found a dead body and I called for a van to come pick up that body, and me and somebody put that body into the van without calling dispatch first, I don't care who you are committing a crime. you are first off misusing that body, because that body has rights even if the spirit is still there or not. It is listed with a social security number and a birth certificate. It has not yet been given a death certificate, so it's protected by the Constitution, civil rights, human rights, and I can go on and on. So once that officer and that guy with the coroner van put the body in there, they did the same thing that the mob gets prosecuted for, gang members, murderers. Once you move that body over 6 feet, there are several crimes that are committed. And I am stating out of my own breath and will that I feel like even if he wasn't murdered, there are a slew of charges that should be filed all the way up to the judge telling them you got 7 days to get this body, all the way up to whoever decided to make them a bill for about if I'm correct, I think it's about $82,000 for the misuse of this man's life, legacy, and to misuse his children and his family after his passing. So as a people, and I don't mean just a black people, I mean as a people who have common sense, who has a spirit, has a heart, has a family, go to work, try to do things in a certain manner, we are all responsible to stand up for this man, because if we don't, at any given day, a law enforcement officer can come in your house, murder you, and he can use the laws that are supposed to protect you and the services that are supposed to be there to make sure what he did doesn't happen. They'll do this shit at will every day, and they have been. This is just a case again, like I said, they were caught with their pants down. And at the end of the day, if we look the other way, they're going to keep doing it for another 50 to 100 years.
Thank you, sir. So just to be mindful that this is a black media platform, and I know that you want to speak frankly, and we are the ones hit with the fines. So this isn't a white-owned network or platform, but certain words, although it's on Facebook and YouTube, there's a fine. There could be a possible fine. So just be mindful of that. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. So Charles, I guess for me too, like looking at this, it was like I looked at one of the pictures, and in the background, the family had the photo lightened. Like if you watch the documentary, which you can, if you want to look at it again, it's on YouTube under Paul Brown Jr. And if you look at it, you see his legs lifted in the background. Like his legs are up in the air. So if he died on his back with his hands kind of bald, how is it that now in this other picture where they're holding the photo ID with the gloves on and taking the picture of the photo ID, but you can see in the background this man's legs lifted in the air? So somewhere in there they moved the body. And why did they move the body? And why did they move the body to that position? That ends up being the question. And then somewhere in there, just wondering things like if like why is it that in one of the incident reports or police reports that was filed, it said something to the fact of him having his legs folded? So if his legs were folded or weren't folded, if he died on his back, how were his legs folded? And then with the picture of his pants being pulled down, the way that they were soiled, like it's right across the knee area, it's soiled from the knee up. So his legs probably were folded at some point. And if they were folded, why were they unfolded? Why were his legs lifted in the air? Why was his body in a different place? Why was it well lit and now it's dark? Were there curtains put up? Like there were so many questions that I had just based off of what they said, the timestamps. Like there was so much information that just did not make common sense. Not critical thinking skills, just common sense. Like, so asking yourself, black, white, pink, or purple, civilian or military, like, why did this happen to this man? And could you imagine this happening to your father or your grandfather and not having any kind of justice and not standing up or speaking up? Like, if you don't stand up or speak up, Mr. Paul said, if you don't stand for justice, then you'll fall for anything. And I just, I've been taught if you don't stand up for something, you'll fall for anything. But I just believe, like, in this case, if you don't express yourself, you're just as guilty as them. If you don't take a stand with this family, like, how can you see this much evidence of a lack of justice and just stay mute? Like, so on that, Charles, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Right. And you absolutely right with the question that you asking. You are absolutely right by asking those questions. And those questions that you asking and amongst the investigation have led to the fact that it's called cover up. And every last one of those participants that arrived at the location where Mr. Brown was deceased at, they failed to intervene into a crime that was committed by them. Intervene means fail to report or say something when you see something is wrong.
Right.
From a police standpoint or even from a citizen standpoint. And that's the issue I have with the disturbing questions that you asking. And these questions that you asking, the answer is going to come forward. But when they fail to intervene, that means I have a problem. That means we have a problem with the city of Ohio. Because there's no way we can get by or a jail or allow you to continue with this fabrication, with the fraud, the bogus police report, and the approval from the supervisors. Every last one of them. Hold
on. Wait. One thing that we will do is maintain the integrity of this show. And what I mean by that is this Charles Brown speaking right now?
Yes, ma'am.
This is you, Charles? Okay, your voice changed up. So I just need to make sure it was you. Sometimes you three-way people in and they start talking on your behalf. So I just want to make sure it was still you. And could you please finish sharing? I apologize for interrupting you.
Yes, ma'am. No problem. I just get so passionate when you have innocent, you have individuals. You're not innocent because you could have said something or did something or tried to correct what you see inside of their house that Mr. Brown was accused of. And that's the issue that I have with the other officers that was around at that time. Because it's like stealing. When you take something that don't belong to you and you put it inside of a vehicle and you drive out with it, that's stealing. And there's a lot of other issues in regard to the case that disturb me a lot.
Can I ask a question, Charles? I need to ask a question.
Charles, can you hear Anton?
Can you hear me, bro?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is something I don't know if you are qualified to answer, but I believe you are. Speaking to Patricia, Ms. Brown, I ascertained that there are 3 different death certificates, but no one has declared him dead. And they are 3 separate death certificates. So could you speak legally? How is that possible?
Those 3 documents that you're speaking on those 3 documents, and according to the laws of Cincinnati, Ohio, there's a process. And those 3 documents that we have seen is illegal. Now, the officer saying the time of death that he thinks of the time of death, as you look at the birth report. But there's it's called an expert. You got to have credentials. Is you qualified to say where he died? When y'all arrived on the scene, do you qualify? Do you have a credential to call that shot or to make that judgment call? And that's one of those issues they're going to have. Those 3 documents, they are illegal. Yes, they are. They are illegal.
I
And to just
can't wait for
clarify,
next week to speak to that again when they are on and available.
yes. And to just clarify, the whole conversation was around, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Brown, I know that you're watching as well. You can chime in through the comments if anything that I say is incorrect, because I know the gentleman who, Mr. Parks and Mr. Brown, have been more engaged and more involved in this conversation, so they may be a little more privy to information that I'm not. But when it comes to these 3 documents that we're referring to, or that were referred to, so when you die, usually there is a coroner's report. They do an autopsy, and there's a coroner's report, or just something to show the cause of death. In this man's case, there's been 3 reports. No one's willing to sign off on anything, so there's no report. And we're asking, why is there no report? And why do the 3 reports, like there's 3 separate conflicting documents, but it's not signed off on? And with it not being signed off on, that means it's not a legal document. And I'm not a lawyer, and this isn't my lane. And I look at the facts and the details. So it's something not right with that. And I could be wrong. Mr. Parks, Mr. Brown, is there anything that I said in that that's incorrect? Anti Charlie?
No, you said what you said is absolutely correct.
Okay. So just making sure that I'm capturing what you're saying in the appropriate and correct way, and I'm not misconstruing anything or putting words into either of you gentlemen's mouths that wasn't there. So, we just lost Charlie. Just call him back. But yeah. So here he is.
Well, hold on. So it was signed, but it was falsified because when she went to the VA doctors, it wasn't real. So that's what the problem is. They were falsified with false signatures.
Right, because they said that she signed off on something, right?
Right.
And she didn't. Right. She never signed off on it. And after that, wasn't it like the doctor and the coroner, like something about what was it that took 6 months? It was supposed to have taken 48 hours, and it took 6 months. What was that document?
Hold on. Well, I know they said that she signed off and she never even spoke to them. You said there was a document that what?
Maybe I'm talking about the same thing, or maybe it's something different. Never mind. Even still, wait, gentlemen. Wait. Even still, gentlemen, because of
the death
if it is,
it has a VA doctor on it.
Wait. Right, but if it's something pertaining to this case, I'd like to make sure that we don't even discuss that. I don't want to go down that road, because right now this family is fighting for justice. And one thing that I won't do is use this platform to indirectly railroad this family out of justice. So in me being curious about 1 or 2 details, one thing that ain't about to happen is that this family not receive justice when it comes to me and anything that I can do to support them. Because exactly. I know for a fact
that's why I'm giving you all the facts and correcting the stuff as you say it, because I'm giving you the corrected facts. So you won't be able to do
right,
that
but I
because you'll be on.
Right. Right. But I just don't want to put out anything that may even be correct, that there is an opportunity for them to doctor up some documents, falsify some documents, because at this point, if they messed up 3 sets of documents and just lied, they can come up with a 4th. And I'm not going to give them that kind of ammunition or power. So the 6-month question that I had, I think it has something to do with this case, but I'm not asking that. So if you could just forget that I even brought it up, because I know that these people have been treated in an unjust manner. I know that this is a terrible crime against anyone, even if he wasn't a veteran. But the fact that he's a veteran, that just takes it to an entirely different level. And the fact that this family has been fighting for 5 years, and they don't even have an attorney willing to represent them. They had someone that was sent by the city to railroad them. And then it's like trying to get justice, and they're fighting by themselves. And so, well, with the exception of us, they have a crew of us who are willing to fight with them.
I was about to correct you there. I was about to get on you.
I'm good. Gregory, you're getting lemonade? He was singing a lemonade song. I guess he was feeling like his mom was getting too intense. So in this situation, in this conversation, it involves getting intense. It involves getting in these people's faces and not backing down, fighting them with a pen, called public policy, called looking at the details in this case, making sure that they don't railroad this Brown family. You know, these people have endured something right here. You know, they didn't even contact them. They were about to cremate the body without the family knowing. How do you cremate a body? And there was a next of kin listed. And they didn't even contact her. She had to contact them. So we're going to talk about that more next week. Definitely. And hopefully they can find a track of their dad's to listen to some of his music. That, you know, that's what they have left of their father as their memory and their legacy. And it's because the city of Cincinnati is hiding. They're burying all of the facts. They're trying to act like this man's life didn't matter. And this is, you know, the rabble right before my show, they were talking about Black Lives Matter and different conversations within that. And one thing that we forget is it's like we're becoming numb to people dying. You know, at one point, just a couple of years ago, it was like, say her name, say his name, say her name, say his name. And now it's like back to business as usual. And we're forgetting, we're leaving people behind, and nobody gets to no one gets to be left behind in this conversation. We are able to create our own platforms. We're able to have radio stations and podcasts, and we're able to have YouTubes and Zooms and all of that. So we should be saying people's names. It shouldn't be Anton Park Sr. It shouldn't be Charles Brown and Chantaye McLaughlin and Mr. Andy having these conversations. It should be everybody getting pissed off and upset and saying we aren't taking this stuff anymore and doing something about it. So and that's a should.
If I can add right quick, another thing we need to concentrate and think about for this next week is that the actual price was $60,000 that they say the Browns owe, and they told them if they just let them have the body, that they wouldn't owe the $60,000, and I have a problem with that. Like, he's a soldier. He was close to a couple military bases, one in Ohio, one in Covington. So I think, again, a further thought process, investigation, and a fight needs to happen for justice on many levels, because if you offer somebody, like, just give us the body and, you know, we'll give you $60,000, because even though they're not giving you that in cash, to offer you to, or you owe us $60,000 if you don't let us keep the body, same conversation. I think that's, again, a part of the egregious process that they're doing to this family for Mr. Brown. Whatever reason that he was hurt and killed and abused, either before or postpartum, I think that is a huge question. Like, even at the very end, they told him, we'll give you $60,000 for your daddy. So, and that's so disrespectful.
You know, even go ahead, Charles.
If you don't mind me to add with that, is that ones that at that particular issue, at that time, inside of that courtroom, and they were treating Mr. Brown as a piece of material, property, like a car, like something belonging to someone else. In this case, there was never proper notice given to the Brown family. If the Brown family didn't happen to just walk in there to inquire about the particular case note that they processing right now without proper notice. And this is what I mean by proper notice, that when you are in a civil matter in Cincinnati, Ohio, you have to give the other person enough time and awareness and notice to be in the courtroom on a particular date and time. That never happened. And the Brown family can prove that. And now what I have a problem with is that at this time, at this position, the judge should have made a better choice and decision instead of I'm telling the Brown family, you got 7 days, and just get out of my courtroom to get your father back. If not, we need $62,000 like right now. And that was the whole big deal about that courtroom hearing. And I'm glad that Ms. Brown was able enough to see and hear what the judge was doing and causing her job to be no longer practiced in Cincinnati, Ohio. And if anyone that listens to me on this platform, and in the next couple of weeks, at the next podcast we will have that judge name, that process, that court case that in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we will try to remove her. And there's a solution how to do that. And I'm not going to go into much detail with that, but we have to remove that judge from that town, that circuit, immediately. Because there's so much malfeasance, so much wrongdoing, not only to the Brown family, but to the whole community, period.
So thank you, gentlemen. It's about that time. I don't want to get fussed at for not wrapping up on time because
we appreciate you.
But we're gonna have a show after the show. So hang on in there, Mr. Park Sr. and Charlie Boy. Just hang on for me for 1 minute. Thank you, Mr. Julius Hall. And I appreciate you for allowing me to have these conversations on this platform. So thank y'all.
Thank you.